you start? Divide by 2. If you forgot to divide by 2, oh my goodness, please remind yourself next time. We have to divide by 2. You forgot to divide by 2?
I thought A equals 2.
Yeah,
like, why
it's
didn't
the
you
quadratic formula.
That's what I did. I did the quadratic formula.
Wait,
What were the
this wasn't a
directions?
quadratic formula?
I thought you said quadratic formula.
I'm not sure how that got confused because I said complete the square.
Dang it!
Abby, are you chewing gum? Okay. Abby, I need a full-size, non-generic box of Kleenex.
Alright.
Tomorrow. All right, so step 1, we are completing the square. So step 1 is divide everything by 2. What's step 2 if we're completing the square?
Subtract 2.
Get the 2 moved to the other side. Now we are going to add something to both sides, right? To get the number that you add to both sides, you take half of this and square it. So what's half of 4? 2. 2, and 2 squared is 4. So I'm going to add 4 to both sides. This, then, will always be a perfect square. This time, it is x plus 2 squared equal to 2.
No.
Square root both sides.
Then we square root both sides. And when we do that, these cancel and leave me with x plus 2 equals plus or minus root 2.
Yep.
And then we
Subtract 2.
subtract 2. So x equals -2 plus or minus root 2. Or plus or minus root 2 minus 2 if you wrote it that way. Now, how many of you got that right?
I would have.
Okay.
I messed up my...
Now, here's what's going to happen tomorrow. I'm not happy with, I'm very happy that those hands went up. That's awesome. I'm not happy that everybody's hand didn't go up. Okay? So we're going to have a quiz tomorrow, only it's going to be 2 questions. And Abby, please listen carefully. And Fox. One question will be complete the square. And this is the process we'll go through. We're going to do another example. The second question will be use the quadratic formula. Okay? Now, let's do one more completing the square, and then we'll look at your homework and go over the questions you had there.
Can you do the quadratic formula with that one?
You can do the quadratic formula with any quadratic equation if the directions allow you to do that. You were told specifically to complete the square.
Can we do that one in the quadratic formula?
Any quadratic formula, any quadratic can be solved with the formula. So, Abby, you should have gotten this answer.
Are you serious?
Yes. This is the correct answer, no matter how you got it. All right, let's go ahead and just for practice, let's do this problem with the quadratic formula. Just so you can see the answers work out to be the same. Okay? So be good practice for us. Quadratic formula now. What's A?
2.
A is 2, B is 8, C is good. So x equals, now I like to write the formula down. What's my formula?
-b plus or minus square root
B squared.
B squared minus 4ac
Over
over 2.
Now, tomorrow on the quiz, that will not be a group effort. You will need to know that. So if you have not yet learned that, you need to get it learned. All right, so now we're ready. X equals -8 plus or minus the square root of 8 squared minus 4
Which is minus 32.
times A times C all over 4, 2a. Right? So we have -8 plus or minus the square root of, okay. That's 32.
Yeah.
64 minus 32 is 32.
32.
So then you get 8 in the square root, right?
No, it's 4 root 2.
Yeah, the square root of 32 is not 8. 32,
Oh, I thought you divided it.
the 32 does break down, though. Let's see, 2 times 16. So I have 2 2s, I have another 2 2s, and then I have a leftover 2.
Yeah.
So that's -8 plus or minus 4 root 2.
But actually,
That 4
yeah.
comes from 2 groups of 2s.
You can cancel it.
Now I have an 8, a 4, and a 4.
You can take out the 4.
I can take out a 4, and that would leave me with -2 plus or minus root 2.
Oh, never mind.
Which, by the way, is exactly what we got when we did it
Right there.
the other way.
Alright.
Which makes sense because, I mean, that's the answer. So no matter how you solve it, that's the answer that you're going to get. What's the matter?
How did you get that answer from that? Yeah.
From this?
Yeah.
Okay, all the circled numbers are divisible by 4. 4 goes into that twice. 4 goes into that once, just for root 2.
Okay.
And then that's technically it's over 1. I just didn't recognize.
Okay.
All right, one more practice. Here we go. In fact, I'm going to have a couple volunteers come up. I'm going to give you the same problem, but I want this side to complete the square, and I want this side to do the quadratic formula. Okay? And so I need volunteers, and our problem will be, let's do 3x squared minus 18x minus 6 equals 0. Let's do that one.
One more time.
And you may certainly use a calculator to help you with your arithmetic. Okay, volunteers, complete the square. Come on, go ahead, you don't have to raise your hand. Just dash up.
Can you like grade our homework?
If it's solved this problem then. Okay. And that this one's
We're both doing it?
No, you're doing the completing the square.
One, yeah, we're both doing the same problem, but that side is completing the square, this side's quadratic formula, same problem. And you can use a calculator because I got some big numbers in there. All right, well, while they're up here, I'm going to check your homework, make sure you did your 5 measly little problems. Please make me in a good mood.
Oh, wait.
You got all 5 of them done? Brady, did you do your 5 homework
Yeah, I
problems?
did. Except one of them was a little tricky. I kind of.
Herb, you do your homework?
Sounds like.
What do you have to show me? That was due yesterday.
Are you talking about me?
No. I'm talking about this sucker.
When was that?
Oh, wait.
and he's so big. Eating the cookies and he goes, I don't know why you're so bad. It's not even good.
I'm a little lost.
X squared minus 3.
Her and Megan Farrell is so
No, I
alike.
phoned a
They're my
friend.
two favorite people in my class. Megan Farrell and they're all she just phoned a friend. You just phoned a friend. No one knows.
I'm gonna phone a friend.
Don't worry about that.
Okay, now, as I am walking around, and first of all, your homework, thank you. You done a good job with your homework. But every single person, including you, Taylor, should be doing that problem, okay? This isn't a spectator sport. We're supposed to do both for each problem.
That's on Friday.
Who else was at the board? Did you have your homework? All right, let's look at what the kids did, and oh my goodness, they got the same answer. Now, that's good news. Is it the correct answer? Does anybody out there verify it? The person who completed the square started by dividing everything by 3. Is that good? Added 2, then added 9. That's very nicely done. Abby, can you do that by yourself? Okay. Now the person who used the quadratic formula had some big numbers going on. How did we get from root 396 to 6 root 11? We've got to be sure we can do that. This is the discriminant. This is what came out when he did 18 squared minus 4 times 3 times negative 6. He got 396. You need to break down 396.
Okay.
And if you can't think of anything else, you know for sure 2 goes into that, right? Now, because I'm old and I'm a math teacher, I can see 6 goes into it too. But you may not have seen 6. You start with 2 then, because you know if it's an even number, 2 will go in. So we get it broken down, let's see. So it's 6 times 66, which is 2 times 3 times 6 times 11, which is 2 times 3 times 2 times 3 times 11. So I've got 2 2s, 2 3s, and a leftover 11. That's how we got 6 root 11. Nicely done. How did he get from here to here? He simplified because 18, 6, and 6 are all divisible by 6. So he took a 6 out of all of those and ended up with that as his answer. So what happens tomorrow? You get to do this tomorrow. And in fact, I might just give you one problem and have you do it both ways. And there's kind of a check built in there, right? Because when you do it both ways, what should happen? You better get the same answer, right? Okay? Caitlin, you all right?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, when you're figuring out, like, the squares,
I thought like, well, Mr. Miller taught us like one escapes, one dies, one escapes, one dies, and then he multiplied the two together for the outside. So would it be 6 root 11?
It is 6 root 11.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
it is 6 root 11.
and then you break it down.
Yeah, then the 6's cancel out, and that's what you
Okay,
get.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we ready? All right. There was a question about a homework problem. Which one was it, Maya McLaurin? Number 29.
No, never get.
Don't give it.
I gave her. No, I gave her my whole back. Last time I could take, the whole back.
Okay, shh, quickly, we gotta get through this. The directions say solve by graphing. Quit throwing things, Katie Baumgartner.
I'm so sorry, Mrs. Ford.
Where are you going?
It was just skinny Bob.
What?
I have a lollipop.
This is like 3rd grade. Come on, don't throw food. Where is it? Is it picked up?
Oh no, Suze ate it.
Okay. Now, we're gonna solve this by graphing. So we gotta get out our calculators. And we're going to type in, y equals this equation. This is number 29. Now, shh, listen. I need everybody paying attention. You have a y equals button, right? So you press y equals and then you type in this equation. So x squared plus x minus 1. Then you hit graph. Now, what? Okay, I'll just show you what mine looks like. Mine looks like this. Is that okay?
Yes.
Yes, because when I am solving with my calculator, what I need to see are the x-intercepts. These are the answers. How do I find those on my calculator? Now that I have the graph, how do I find, let's say, this point right here? How would I find that?
You have to like go to the left.
Trace.
And then go to the right.
Second calc. Remember that? We went through this one day. I press second calc, and then I choose the 0 option. Then I set my left bound and my right bound and take a guess, and it will do it for me. Now, we did this. We spent a whole day in class doing this. We can't do it again. So if you don't know how to do this, you need to sit down with me and a calculator, and I'll go through it with you. Or with your neighbor. Somebody at your table knows how to do it. How many answers does this problem have? 2. I have found one of them. To find the other one, I start over again. Second calc. Click to 0. Left bound. Right bound. And answer. That one is 0.62. So Maya, those are the 2 answers to the question. Those of you that do not have TI calculators, Texas Instruments calculators, I cannot help you unless you bring me your handbook. I've never used anything but a TI in my life. At this age, I'm not interested in learning about other calculators. But if you bring me the handbook, we can figure it out. Okay? All right. Anybody else have a question about homework? You getting those? Answer. Anybody else have a question about homework? All right, get out your note sheet then. We've got the continue on today.
15.
I'll get in there. I'll get in there.
Number 5, this is our last day in P5. Thank goodness, it seems like we've been in P5 forever. Take a look at part 5, which is on the back side of page 5. We are going to solve equations that have radicals in them.
No, I found it in my backpack. This little guy was.
Oh, looks like I left off question D. Oh, well, I'll fill that in. We'll figure that one. All right, here we go. Anybody have any idea? This does not look like the equations we've been working on. Anybody have an idea what to do, Tim? We're going to square both sides. Very, very good. We're going to square both sides. And what happens when we square a radical? They cancel. So what do we have on this side? X plus 2. And what do we have on this side? 3x minus 1. Wow, that's an easy equation. Taylor Holder, I think we can solve this, can't we? What are you going to do next? Maybe move this x over here?
Yeah.
So 2 equals 2x minus 1? Add the 1. So 2x equals 3? And x equals, divide by what? 2. X equals 3 halves? Now, we need to talk about something, so I need everybody listening. When you square both sides of an equation, you always have to check your answer. When you square both sides of an equation, you introduce the possibility of what are called extraneous roots. Have you heard that word before? Extraneous roots. What are extraneous roots? They're roots that you didn't make any mistakes when you found them. You did everything perfectly. We are completely right here. But sometimes, because of the squaring, they just don't check. They're just bad answers, even though you didn't make any mistakes. Whenever, okay, it's always a good idea to check your answers. It's always a good idea if you have time. When you square both sides, you have to check your answers to make sure you don't have an extraneous root. So to check it, I go back to the original problem, and every time I see an x, I'm going to put in 3 halves. I'm checking. Let's see. This is 2 over 1, right? So that would be 4 halves.
Yeah.
Plus 3 halves, this would be 7 halves. What's over here? What do I get when I multiply 3 over 1 times 3 over 2?
9 over 2.
9 over 2. It's minus 1.
So 7.
But that'll be 9 halves minus 2 halves, which is, did it check out? Did both sides equal?
Yep.
Yep. So I'm good. I'm good. No extraneous roots here. That worked out great. All right, how about the next one? Maya Brownlow, what do you think about this? It is a nice problem, Maya. How might you approach it?
Do you do the same thing that Kim just said?
You absolutely can, which is what?
Square.
Square both sides. Now, what you have to be very careful of, Maya, when you do this is, you gotta square everything. So I have a 2 sitting out here that's getting squared. So that's actually gonna become a 4. This is gonna cancel out and leave me with just x plus 1 equal to 9. Did everybody catch all that? So what do you want to do next? Distribute. So 4x plus 4.
Take the 4.
5. So I got 5 fourths. What about you?
I did it a different way.
What did you do, Ethan Topham?
I divided the 2 to go to the 3.
Absolutely. You should have gotten the same answer. Yep. Yep. You absolutely can do that. Now, what do I need to do with that answer? Check it. So I go back to the original problem. Always go all the way back to the original. And every time you see an x, plug in 5 fourths. Oops, that's not parentheses, that's a rather. All right, so we're getting some good fraction practice today. How do I add 5 fourths and 1? I need to add those together. How do I do that? Common denominator. So what's 5 fourths and 4 fourths? 9 fourths. Now, can anybody tell me what the square root of 9 fourths is?
3 halves.
Very good, Abby Brady. How does she know the square root is 3 halves? Because the square root of 9 is 3 and the square root of 4 is 2. Now what happens when you multiply 2 over 1 times 3 over 2?
You get 3.
You get 3. Is that what I was supposed to get?
Yep.
Worked out. I promise they're not always going to work. If they don't work, then you just cross them out. So if I would have checked this one, Maya, and it didn't come out okay, now it did, but if it didn't come out okay, I would say that's not an answer and there isn't a solution. There's no solution to the problem. Now, this was an answer because it did check, but some of them won't. Now, the next problem is much harder. Does anybody have any idea why this problem is harder?
Because you have the square next.
You have to square both sides, you guys. I need you listening. This is big time. We have to square both sides. Now, you're used to that. We did that here, and we did our last problem. But here's the difference. This side, of course, is just 5 minus x. That's easy. This side is x plus 1 times x plus 1. You don't square the individual pieces. You square the whole unit, which means I'm going to have to do what?
Distribute.
I'm going to have to distribute. I call it foiling. But it's actually distributed. That's right. Okay? So what do we get when we FOIL x plus 1 times x plus 1?
X squared plus x plus 1.
X squared plus,
2x.
well, yes, it's x plus 1. For those of you who can do it in your head, it is 2x. So we have 5 minus x equals x squared plus 2x plus 1. What kind of an equation is that? It's quadratic. What do I do with quadratic equations? First of all, I set them equal to 0. And then I pick my method of solution. So how am I going to get this set equal to 0? I'm going to add the x over. So I have x squared plus 3x plus 1 equal to 5. And then I will minus the 5. So I have 0 equals x squared plus 3x minus 4.
Yeah.
Now you need to solve it. what are your options? You could use the quadratic formula. You could complete the square. And don't forget factoring. If it factors and you're okay with that, you're comfortable with that, you can solve this by factoring. Does that one factor?
4 plus 1.
Yeah, that one factors pretty easily into x plus 4, x minus 1. But again, I'm not telling you have to factor it. I'm saying that's just another option you have, right? I would not complete the square on this one if I had a choice. Why? Can you see why?
It would be 2 fractions.
When you figure out what you're going to add to both sides, don't you take half of this?
Yeah.
And that's not going to be an even number.
Yep.
So if I want to avoid fractions, I think I won't complete the square on this problem. So what are my answers? Negative 4 and 1. Guess what? You get to check them both.
Yay.
So I put them into the original problem. Hey, I know some of you are getting bored. Please, please, please hang with me. Let's plug in negative 4 and see what happens. I get the square root of, what happens when I put negative 4 in there? It becomes a plus, which means 9. What's the square root of 9? 3. Does 3 equal negative 3?
No.
No. Extraneous root. It didn't check. Let's try 1. Put it in the original problem. What am I going to have under the radical if I put in a 1? A 4, so that's 2, equals 1 plus 1. Is that true?
Yeah.
So this answer worked, that one did not.
So we have 1.
Got it? All right, I did not put another problem in, so I'm going to give you one right now. She put in there.
I love that word.
So for D, write this in that D blank and then solve it for me.
Because it worked. Wake up. I think we need to do
Okay, put that in for problem D. That's going to be your problem D. And I'd like you to solve it for me. And don't forget to check your answer. Be careful, I got a little tricky here. How might we start? Yeah, get that 5 out of there. Right. And then, if you want, you can pull an even top them and divide by 2, if you want. You don't have to, but you could.
What's the square root of 1?
What's the square root of 1? 1, yep.
I was confused with the 5. You have to subtract. I was like, oh. It was pretty square, right?
What's that?
Okay, how are we faring here, groupies?
4 times 3 times 2.
Step 1, you already told me you're going to subtract 5, right? Now, did anybody go ahead and divide by 2? You can. So that'll give you the square root of x minus 3 equals negative 1. Now, you don't have to do this, boys and girls, but we can. It's an option. What do I do at this point? I square it. So x minus 3 equals 1. How many of you got 4 as your answer?
Me.
Okay, but did you check?
Doesn't work.
If you go back to the original problem and you put 4 in here. Whoa, stop, wait. What's 4 minus 3?
1.
Square root of 1 is 1. Times 2 is 2. Plus 5 is 7. Does not equal 3. No solution. All right, listen carefully. A couple days ago, I gave you an extra practice worksheet. You all have it. That's your homework. Extra practice worksheet. That's your homework. Got it? Have a good day. Thank you for being so good.